Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Thursday. We've almost made it. We've almost made it through the week. If you guys are, if you guys are like 99% of the crowd, man, it's gonna we'll say happy Friday to you. Or welcome to the weekend. So thanks for being here with us. We got a big show today. I just put up on orangebloods.com a new updated depth chart projection for the offense. We talked about the defense yesterday. Today we'll talk about the offense for the fall camp projection. And I felt like I didn't have that hard of a time with it. And Cody actually had a team source text me, like right after I put it up, had a team source text me and tell me that I did a good job. Can you believe it?
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. I was going through it. I read through it. And y'all should too. He got write-ups on there too. It's not just a depth chart. He put some write-ups about a couple of different position battles, but we'll talk about those today. But I was going through trying to all right, curate some questions for the show. Like, what can I be a little combative about? You know, what I think you have wrong. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's not wrong. That seems right. That seems right. That seems right. That seems right. So I just kind of don't have a lot of
what are we going to do for a show?
We're going to be more towards
we're going to talk about how
potential outcomes than anything. But
we can talk about how On3 bought rivals.
It's not as
no one's talked about that on the YouTube today,
huh?
We can talk about how On3 is buying rivals. No one's talked about that all day, right?
No, I don't think there's any shows about that today. I don't think the offense is as spicy or as maybe, I don't know, man. Yesterday was our show was centered around the number one defense. I think it's the number one defense in the country. You look at it, the draft picks that are, being conversed right now. Anthony Hill's pretty much consensus in the way too early mocks, the top 20 pick.
Oh, what about that terrible mock you sent me earlier?
Yeah. And then you got the Jalen Gilbo, fourth overall mock draft.
It's just so bad, dude. I mean, not that I think Gilbo stinks or anything, but they have him going 2 spots ahead of Ant Hill.
Maniacal. I actually didn't even see that because I don't consume content from said website, but somebody replied to one of my posts that I made about some expected draft capital for guys, and they're like, "Yo, did you see this Gilbo thing?" And I was like, "Are you pulling my leg?" And I looked it up and I found it, and it was Arch goes 1, I think Gilbo went 4, and I think Ant Hill went 5 or 6.
If one of these sites that has Arch going 1, that they're not paying attention.
That's like your dead giveaway. I tweeted out last week. I was like, your dead giveaway, if you don't have a damn clue what's going on right now, is if you if you put Arch number 1.
All right, so we have baseball on. I guess it just started. That's the Arkansas. The Arkansas series. So yeah, Sam, man, if you can keep us updated on that through the show, we'll throw the updates here on the screen. I would turn it on, but I wouldn't really even know how to keep you updated. I don't. This is football with friends. It's not really sports with friends.
Touchdown.
Yeah. If Jonah Williams isn't bad, I can talk about what I think about his quads and stuff like that. But I'm not really sure what else I can bring to the table there. All right. You want to talk about this depth chart projection?
Let's do the depth chart, but let's talk about this super chat quick first from Catch the Wave X for $5. It says, with the coaching turnover and player turnover at OSU, how is Texas not favored in week 1? Well, I would say my first.
So there's been significant coaching turnover on the defensive side of the football for sure. But as far as the player turnover, I think that it was, it's Texas. I mean, you kind of throwing a rock from a glass house there. Catch the Wave X, right? Texas is replacing almost its entire offensive line. They should have won the Joe Moore Award last year. They're replacing their 3-year starting quarterback. They're replacing, I guess not. I can't say that Isaiah Bond's an NFL wide receiver, but they're replacing a guy that, if they're not for the issues and stuff like that, would have been a day talent. What would have been a day 2 talent at wide receiver? You're replacing a round 1 wide receiver. You're replacing a near day 2 tight end. You know, you're replacing your two day two defensive tackles.
To all this merit, like Ohio State was the only. I mean, Georgia technically had one more player drafted as well. They had 13. Ohio State had 14 players drafted as well. So it's like, among 44 positional starters in this game that's going to come up in week 1 this year, 26 from both teams were drafted. 26 were drafted. And that's not counting like the Silas Boldens, the Jake Majors of the world that weren't drafted, but were contributors on a weekly basis. Like you look at Ohio State, their offensive line's not as beat up.
They lost Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson.
But that's 2 dudes. The rest of the offensive line, if you remember from the playoff, was not good.
Yeah.
So, and again, how are they not favored? I haven't even looked at if there's an opening line. Obviously, there isn't.
Wasn't it -2.5?
But again, so -2.5.
That's home field advantage.
That's week. Yeah, that's week 1 in the shoe.
Yeah.
So I'd call that a push. But we do appreciate the super chat, and I do totally get the coaching turnover. But I think they've had coaching turnover too, as well as Texas. I think they're about equal. I know theirs was an offensive line coach, but Texas did add a bunch of dudes, lost choice, lost defensive back coaches, added defensive back coaches.
It feels like they lost a bunch. Texas lost a bunch. They met in the Final Four last year. Texas did not happen to win that football game. They view these teams as evenly matched, with both having similar losses, with similar key players, including quarterback, including sick wide receivers, including great offensive line, including great defensive line.
But
and so it's like they're evenly matched teams. And so one team is going to
I don't think quarterback's evenly matched.
No,
who the quarterback is yet.
I don't know, but their loss, but just losing a similar style of a similar draft, draftable quarterback, draftable in a similar area, right? So yeah, certainly, you give Arch the nod to whatever it is that they're doing for sure. Let's pull up this depth chart and see what we got here. Cody, does that look like it did yesterday? Is that right?
That looks good. Looks good enough.
All right. So let's go over this. Starting out of the offensive line. So basically what I had to do to start this depth chart was, of course, so I removed Malik Agbo, and I added in from the spring depth chart projection the summer editions of the Coleman twins, Nick Townsend, the tight end, Jack Indries, the tight end, and Emmett Mosley, the fifth, the Stanford transfer. Jack Indries, of course, the Cal transfer at tight end. But some definite things have changed. I think that along the offensive line, the first thing that I would mention is there any way that we can make this all fit, or I guess we'll just go side to side with it.
I think you can stretch your page on your personal computer.
Oh, I can do that.
I think so. I think that would help.
It's a bunch of boomerific questions here.
Or you could boomer it down to 110% instead of 125%.
Yeah. Why did I put it at 125 anyway?
Well, because yesterday 125 there must be one less cell for defense. Oh, there you go. There it is. Right there. Perfect. Right there.
Right there?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So at left tackle, pretty self-explanatory. Trevor Gooseby, Nick Brooks. Gosh, by the way, the article today on Nick Brooks, that guy needs to
dog.
guy needs to relax.
Hey man, if I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah. But let's just talk about the tackles. Okay, so right tackle, Baker and Kojo, and Cody, that I went back and forth about that. Should I put an or between those two guys?
Yeah, that was one of the only questions I had.
This just through spring, we were told the whole time that Kojo was greatly improved. This is a real battle with Brandon Baker, and Brandon Baker, who's a year younger, represents one of the biggest NIL investments that Texas has on the whole entire roster, right? And he's a 5-star, and eventually there's going to have to be eventually there's going to have to be pressure to get him on the football field, right? And it feels like that kind of factored into it. I was thinking that maybe playing Kojo over Baker to start spring ball had to do with the fact, Sark had mentioned that he needed to see more consistency out of Brandon Baker. I think also, and this was something that Catch brought up on a show that we were doing, maybe that really helps to keep Kojo out of the portal if he knows that he's not already passed up and it's already set in stone that Brandon Baker is going to start over him, because then he's officially been recruited over. Because if you look at it, Cody, here at the two tackles, this right here, there's only 4 of these dudes, right? None of these other dudes really project at all to play tackle. There's 4. And so what I wrote is, I'm like, man, I think that in 2026, they can take 3 or 4 true tackles, especially if we're considering the fact that Gooseby could be gone after this season. I know it just shows him as a sophomore, but he's a redshirt sophomore. So,
and I think he will be, as long as he has a good season.
It's almost like they need to get not just Ojo and maybe not just Crimpin, and hopefully it's like an Ojo, Crimpin, and Turrentine, and maybe some maybe some other guy that's got a little bit of tackle versatility that you could bump into guard.
Well, Max Wright, remember?
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. All right. So those they need to add those 3 on top of Max Wright.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm going to ask this question about each one of these positions on the offensive line. This is one of the things I thought up. I was trying to think of what can I ask you, because I think we agree on everything here. And I'll ask it to you about all 5 positions, so just think about it. If the starter goes down at each position, if there's one injury this year, and the one injury is each look at these all as different things. So the only injury that happens all year is X, right? If Gooseby goes down, who's the plug-in right now? Do you believe in Brooks as right now, or do you think that they would potentially move one of Baker or Kojo because they've been in the program for a year?
Brooks is going to have to be probably suspended for the first half of that first game. So if we're talking about the first game in Columbus, I think for one he'll be suspended, and then but I think that I do think that you probably just move Kojo over there.
Okay, and then if Baker goes down, then Kojo. So that essentially would make Kojo the swing tackle.
To start, but we have heard really good things about Brooks, and we've seen that just you get in a little bit of trouble like this. It's not. A lot of these guys have. I mean, gosh, I'll be the last to talk about anybody having hiccups when they're in college with this kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I think we just need to frame it in a way like to start if it's the Ohio State game, right? And if we say it like that, I think it's Kojo.
He's the swing. He's the backup for both positions, independent. If one position happens, he's the backup. The other position happens, he's the backup.
Yes, in game 1, because that saying it like that gives me the out to say, like, through the year, I think that Nick Brooks could emerge as somebody who definitely would be the one that would go in at left
with more game reps. Yeah, I think in the ideal world, he gets through the Sam Houston game and gets some snaps.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, all right.
As far as the guards, I mean, the left guard is it's set. Jaden Chapman, I don't know how long he's going to be out. I think what he had was a knee to end fall camp. So to end spring camp. We'll see if he's back. But that for me, it's Nato, Chapman, Jackson Christian, Devin Coleman. I need to check around about the whole thing with Jaden Chapman's knee. I was just told about it once, and I wasn't even told it was a knee. Somebody told me that they thought it was a knee. So we need to. That would affect things if he was unable to start the season. At center, Cole Hudson, Connor Robertson, Daniel Cruz. There was a time there when I thought Daniel Cruz might be pushing Connor Robertson, or I was told that by one person. Every subsequent report that I got after that said that that's not true, and that Robertson's still ahead of Cruz.
Okay.
And then at right guard, of course, DJ Campbell. Arguably, I'd have to go back and look and see if total career snaps, who has more between Hudson and Campbell. I'm sure it's Campbell by now. but it's probably close considering that Hudson started over Campbell his whole freshman season. Um, but then you have Campbell, you have Nate Kibble directly behind him, you have Connor Stroh behind him. Then I added on Jordan Coleman. I added on those Coleman twins just at the end, as the fourth guards at both of them. They're coming in late. They need the most development of all these guys anyway. They're true freshmen. So that's how I see it with those guys. So,
all right. So and to your snap question, it's not really close. At least according to PFF. I haven't pulled up the deep dig data because I don't have access to all 3 years, but at least the last 2 years, DJ has over 1,600 snaps, and they have Cole Hudson down for about 600.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, but they'd still be pretty close because if you looked at 2021, 2022.
Yeah, that was 781 on here for him and 129 for Campbell. So that's about 16, 17, 1,800 for Campbell. And then for Hudson, it's about 1,000, 1,060, 1,160, 1,200. So 1,200, 1,800. So still both guys are well over 1,000 snaps.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Question then about these. Same question like I had about Gooseby and Baker. Week 1, one of these guys goes down. Who's the step in? Umuzalo goes down. Is it Hudson bumps over?
Umuzalo goes down. Well, that's the question. And I think it has to do with Chapman's health. But assuming Chapman's healthy, what's the better combo? Chapman and Hudson, or Robertson and Hudson? Certainly, if Chapman's not healthy, you would move Hudson over, and you would move Connor Robertson into center. But I think what it would be is that, man, I think you could just. I think, it's tough. Robertson's a junior. Maybe the staff would move Hudson to left guard. The most likely thing I think would move Hudson to left guard and move Robertson to center.
Especially, I think the thing is you brought up, if we're talking just purely about week 1, it would be you're in the heat of battle against a Power 5, blue blood. You want the most game experience involved here. And the one thing we do know is Robertson has at least game experience where Chapman doesn't. So I think that would be where I would lean, right? It's just bump Hudson over. Assuming there's no snap problems or history of practice fumbles and things of that nature between him and Arch, which I doubt there would be. All right, then right guard. This one seems a little more of a wild card to me. Do you think it would just be automatic that it would be Kibble?
Yep. Yeah, I like the combination of Cole Hudson and Nate Kibble more than I like the combination of what else? Oh, Connor Robertson and Cole Hudson.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the inverse.
What I think is that if Cole Hudson were to get hurt, I think they need to start doing. They need to start giving DJ Campbell like his Hayden Connor share of just work snapping footballs to the quarterback.
Interesting.
Because if Cole Hudson goes down, then I think that kind of breaks some things. And I think that Nate Kibble, he's been like right on the tip of everybody's tongue this summer as a guy that's really kind of come along and done, not this summer, this spring, is a guy that's really kind of come along and done well. I think you bump DJ Campbell into center. Now, with
interesting,
the one thing that worries me about that, though, is that he's a guy that really frustrates Coach Sark, and I think to some degree frustrates Coach Flood and things like that. I'm not sure he has the same no one has the same grasp on this stuff as a Jake Majors, right?
Well, I would say duh.
But it's not even Connor Robertson that's been working behind him the whole time, right? So maybe that, I don't know. You figure, man, one of these guys, they're going to have to. It just depends on how much better Connor Robertson's gotten. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten my eyeballs on him too much this spring. I definitely worry about second center, though. I worry about Cole Hudson, to be completely honest.
I tell you what, I wouldn't have any worry of is if we could see Cole Connor Robertson, and we could see that he's been eating some Texas beef traders, and he's beefed up a little bit.
Yeah.
He can really take on some 350-pound defensive tackles. If he was eating some Texas beef traders this spring, and he was maybe up to 335, I think we'd have a different conversation.
Well, you don't necessarily have to gain weight by eating Texas beef traders. Like it's a great way to lose weight. As long as you just eat it, as long as you eat it and you get your steps in, get your workouts in and stuff like that, man, you get strong. You get strong like bull, dude. I mean, this is 100% natural, clean protein, man. This herd's never intermingled with any other herds. They're bovine nutritionists there on staff to make sure that these animals live their absolute best life. They're grass fed. They're never even supplemented anything else that's not human grade, non-GMO food that comes from like the stuff that they're about to throw, like all the blueberries or something that they're about to throw out at HEB. Like they'll go buy those up and they'll feed these cows. These cows live quite a life. And listen, they live on through Texas beef traders and through the nourishment that they're going to bring you and your family. You get 10% off by just mentioning us. When you go to Texas beef traders, we also are selling our beef jerky at Texas beef traders that we've developed with those guys. So you can scan the QR code up top, but man, just go in and see Darren, go in and see Shay. If you can't make it in and you live in the Austin area, call over there, make an order. It's just as cheap or cheaper than the grocery store once you apply the discount. And you're supporting local ranches, you're supporting local businesses, you're supporting great people, and you're getting much, much, much better meat. The stuff you're getting at the stores is terrible. Go to Texas Beef Traders, and if you live in the Austin area, Darren will just bring it to your house for free. All right? TexasBeefTraders.com. All right, Cody. Let me actually toss up our Poncho Outdoors thing here at the bottom, and we will go to tight end. All right. So, I mean, this is just it's kind of like Murad Watson on the defensive side. This is a sight unseen promotion to the starters for Jack injuries. I'm sure that you agree.
Dude, I seen some mocks with this dude's name in the 20s this week.
Really?
I also saw Max Clare's name in there, though. The tight end that went from Purdue to Ohio State. But I did see injuries in one.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
Hey, they're both first-round consideration tight ends, which I didn't see coming.
I think that the main competition here is going to be between Jordan Washington, who was injured early in spring ball, and Spencer Shannon, who kind of emerged a little bit as a kind of a leader of that group. I don't know though if it's going to be like who beats who out, or like who's playing what role, right? Injuries last year, he only played 38.2% of his snaps via PFF in line, attached to the line of scrimmage. So obviously that means over 60% of the time he was either in the slot or he was at H-back. So if we're just talking about a guy whenever Texas plays 12 personnel, they usually play one guy in line and one guy at an H-back or one guy at the slot, right? That's how they run one of their most popular plays that they like to run, which is called the split zone concept. So you have Jordan Washington, and last year he only played 27 snaps, but he didn't line up as an inline tight end a single time. So that doesn't seem like a good match for a guy like Injuries, who's only been in line 38% of the time. It doesn't seem like that's where he does his best work. Whereas you look at Spencer Shannon, he played 53 snaps last season. He lined up in line for 64.15% of his snaps. And I just made note that that's the greatest ratio of inline play at Texas for a tight end since Steve Sarkisian arrived at the school, except for Jared Wiley back in 2021. He was at 65.1%. So we're talking about 64.15% to 65.1%. And so only Jared Wiley, out of all the tight ends that have been at Texas, even dudes that played like 12 snaps or whatever, have played a higher percentage of their snaps in line. And that's not counting guys like Malik Agbo and Andre Carrick. Like obviously those guys are going to be tight ends who played in line, but they're just sixth offensive linemen. So if we're talking about a guy that fits the profile who would kind of fit better, it would be Injuries. But I do see it. There should be a battle there between him or Shannon. Then between Amari Winston and Nick Townsend, I think Nick Townsend's a wild card coming in as a true freshman. Cody loves him. Cody's talking about how he might want to play defense. But Winston's gotten a lot of flowers from Coach Sark this year. And then Will Randall, I don't know about him, but he did come to school with Arch Manning, and I'm not sure if you've heard, but Arch Manning is projected to be the starting quarterback. So um, that's where we are on tight end. Anything you see wrong there?
My my thought was about. I mean, I would have Randall ahead of Townsend just because we haven't seen or heard hide nor hair of Townsend, and he's pretty slight. So I just assume that's going to take a year. And Randall has been in the program for a year, so I would put him ahead. But I understand the or there. I don't know if I would have an or between Winston and Townsend. To me, this is how I have it, is just stacked. I just would stack it. Like no ors, just stack it. Endries, Shannon, Washington, Winston, Townsend, Rand. I would just stack it. And that makes the most sense in my brain, given that before Endries got to town, before Washington, I mean, the earliest stuff from like practice 1, 2, 3, you saw Shannon out there. Shannon was massive, right? There was like, oh, well, Shannon, maybe
Looks good. Yeah.
It's good. Maybe he's going to do something. And it's like, again, he's been in the program for a year. So it's like, I would say off first thought, he has to be in that top 3 list. Given what we saw last spring from Washington, he has to be up there. But given now that he's got this injury, this collarbone injury, I would pop him right like you have behind Shannon, but you have the or there. So I totally get that. And then the Winston thing, like you said, that sort of feels like a wild card as well, to the point where I could see any of those 3 guys, Shannon, Washington, or Winston, in any 3 orders right now.
Well, I mean, it feels like you and I see the order together. We see to get we both see the order kind of being the same. I've just slipped in some ors.
Yeah, right. You've just cowardly added a bunch of ors in there.
Yeah, it's a little cowardly. But look, hey, there's no other way to do it as we get over here to wide receiver. I think with the X, I wasn't cowardly. I got it Wingo, French, Terry. That's the way it's been. At the slot wide receiver, this isn't cowardly. It's just I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it seems because
DeAndre Moore is keyed up to be the slot guy. He's next man up at slot, right? It's that's just how it's been. But I just look at Emmett Mosley the fifth, and I see he played 60. He played 2/3 of his snaps last year out of the slot when he had his big breakout season. He looks like a slot guy. He moves like a slot guy. He has changed the direction, footwork at his footwork, stem work at his route transition points. He looks like a guy who's going to be just filthy in the slot. And I just wonder, it's like Cody's often made the point where I was like, well, if you look at DeAndre Moore's usage down the stretch last season when Isaiah Bond was banged up or doing whatever he was doing whenever Texas was in the postseason, you saw DeAndre Moore lining up outside. And we know it's like, no matter what you think about him, whether you can play in the slot, whether you can play outside, whatever, he hasn't played very much. There were games last year where he played 100% of his snaps in the slot. It happened a lot, right? Mm-hmm. It was just towards the end of the season. I think in the Ohio State game, he only played like 55% of his snaps in the slot. So it's but no matter where you see him line up, one thing you can't deny is he's fast, right? I think he could play a stretch flanker kind of role, right? So I think could he maybe? Here's the thing: it feels like Parker Livingstone is going to, with as great as he's been over the Z wide receiver, I feel like he's going to still have to battle to be like the 3rd wide receiver here, right? Yes. But I'm just not sure whether it's going to be Emmett Mosley or whether it's going to be DeAndre Moore. I feel like Parker Livingstone at this point is a much more formidable opponent as far as the camp battle than most people will give him credit for. I've never slept on him. I'm not going to start sleeping on him now. I think he's going to be very formidable to go against. But I do think that DeAndre Moore is really good, and I think that Emmett Mosley looks like this is an 18-year-old breakout on an offense with a terrible quarterback that featured Alec Ironmaner that just went in the 4th round of the Tennessee Titans. That's whenever to have that kind of veteran target competition with a bad quarterback, and to technically have what we statistically view as a breakout, which is an average of something higher than 20% of team receptions, team receiving yards, and team receiving touchdowns. That's a big deal at age 18, age 19, whatever it is, true freshman, right? So it's just people worry about wide receiver. Like, I think I take another one. It's like, dude, like, I have a hard time picking out who the top three are going to be out of those four, but I do think that when we narrow it down, it's those four that we need to be considering. Do you agree?
I think it's those four. And I'll be honest, like did you see McShay's mock this morning?
Yes.
So Todd McShay, NFL draft analyst, solo, independent right now. Mock draft, DeAndre Moore, 30th overall to the Buffalo Bills in his way too early mock. It says everybody's gone. Obviously, Golden Helm Bond. He credits him to having 39 catches and 7 touchdowns. There's people out there that are talking about this, right? It's not just us fanboying over DeAndre Moore because we love him and we have loved him for the last couple of years. If you've tapped in with Football with Friends for the last, 3 years, however long it's been going now.
Gosh, is that
a lot of episodes, right? North of, I think for you've done like north of 250, maybe 300 of these. But point being, you talked about DeAndre Moore and his high slot usage last year, which is north of 80%, which is what you've seen the last couple of years from these slot guys and what you've come to expect from, the Jordan Whittington role that you talk about. But like I said, at the end of the year, the Clemson-Ohio State game where he went, north of 30% out wide, didn't have the biggest output in those games, but he did it. And that was just kind of a transition that happened as the season went on, right? The games, like you mentioned, where he played 100% in the slot was like Colorado State, UTSA, Monroe, Mississippi State, like the first 5-6 games of the year. And then as the season went on, A&M, Arizona State, Florida, Arkansas, Ohio State, Clemson, the back end, he started to, work a little bit more out 10, 15, 20, 10, 15, 20 in that area to see a little bit more outside. Now, in the inverse with Emmett Mosley, a guy that played a shark ton in the slot, his 2 biggest games last year we talked about against Louisville and San Jose State at the back half of the year, his biggest games came when he was playing outside. And again, he's not the biggest guy, but what is he, 6'1", 185 or something? He's not small. Like, he's very similar build to DeAndre Moore, 58%, 43% out wide. And those were the games he had north of 100 yards, 101 and 168, 3 touchdowns. So I think they're, we've seen and we've heard this the last couple of years, but, cross-training these receivers at different spots. And to be honest, and if you're going to be truthful with yourself, how do you get DeAndre Moore drafted in the first round? And I know that's not the end goal here, but you don't force him into the – I know Agbuka was predominantly in the slot. I can't remember what his slot percentage was, but it was up there. And he was just, the model of consistency, though, at Ohio State doing that. It's DeAndre Moore has the speed, right? This is, if you look at this receiver room in itself with Wingo, who's the bigger body guy, Livingstone, who we know is fast, but a bigger body guy. And that's probably his game, probably, I would assume, isn't going to be like a Robbie Anderson where it's going to be like, hey, dude, just run straight line. Like, I assume there's going to be a little more to Livingston's game than that goal. Like, when you look at this room, DeAndre Moore is the guy. He's the guy. He's the sub 4.4 guy right now that's like going to be the focal point. So using him on the inside and the outside would make a lot of sense, especially when you have a Mosley that can do both as well. Think you just have Wingo obviously over there as his X, just leave him alone. But I think we're going to get a lot of Moore. We're going to get a lot of Mosley and a lot of Livingstone. And the way I would look at this, Alex, to be quite easy with it, is I think Wingo's going to play his 80% snaps. Moore's going to play 80% of snaps. And then I think between Livingston and Mosley, it's just going to be what it's going to be. Like, you're going to get a heavy dose of both dudes. Like you said, it's going to be these 4 guys, and whatever else comes from it, from French or Terry or McCutcheon or Lockett, Niblett, whatever it's going to be, even Aaron Butler, like, it's going to be what it's going to be, but it's going to be these top 4 dudes as the focal point. Would you disagree with that?
No, I mean, that's the way I'd see it. But then again, like, I'm leaving myself open to a big surprise from somebody like, Jamie French. You know what I mean? It's like, so with that can happen.
With that, the only one thing I have different on my depth chart is I have an or between French and Terry.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But French was definitely running, like, after Wingo went down, French was running with the ones the whole time.
Okay. So you would keep it as is because more so than anything, Terry's just been getting moved around and stuff, and he's just
If French has been lining up there with the ones the whole time.
okay. All right.
So that's that's how I have it. Look, and if there was a 101 pick for liquor stores and fine food stores, it would certainly be Specs.
Have you heard the news? Specs is turning 63, and we're celebrating you. Whether you're looking for whiskey, canned cocktails, or wine, Specs has it all with Texas-sized savings all month long. Specs. Cheers to save.
All right, it's Football with Friends. Alex and Cody here on Orange Bloods Live. We're here every night at 6 p.m., so make sure and come back and see us if it's your first time or if you're just now checking us out. Cody is Cody. I hope we don't lose Cody here. He's beginning to free. Cody, we're losing him. We're losing.
What?
We've been losing you for a minute here, but I think we might have you back. All right, so we have running back. I think it's pretty. This is all about whether CJ Baxter is healthy. CJ Baxter got hurt the August
7th.
It was the first week of August, right? It was the day that we got the email from Thomas was August 7th, but I don't know what day of the week that was, and he said it happened at practice on Tuesday. So maybe we got the email on a Thursday, and it was, it might have been August 5th. It was just first week of August, right? So we have football starting in less than 3 months, right? We're May 1st. Sark has already said fall camp begins in June, or
July,
not June. that would be very early. Fall camp begins in July. So 3 months from the end of July, 3 months to the end of July was back at the end of April, right? It was like last week. So we're less than two. We're between 2 and 3 months out. He'll be really cutting it close to be 100% by the start of fall camp. Wasn't that ACL, LCL, all kinds of L's?
Yeah. So did you build this thing with him with the expectation of just if he was in, you'd put him at 1 or 2?
I would have had Trey Wisner or CJ Baxter, then Jarrett Gibson or Christian Clark, then James Simon or Ricky Stewart.
Okay.
Is that how you would have it?
I don't think I have the or between Simon and Ricky, but I get it because we haven't seen anything. I'm just going off of what we've heard. Like, I just feel like we've heard more from the Simon thing, but that's literally splitting the most hairs. I'm interested about that running back 2 spot. If there's no Baxter for, like, let's say the first 3 or 4 weeks, like, I'm just interested how that thing's deployed.
Well, I mean, if it's based on what we've heard from practices and like just the Christian Clark stuff has gone bananas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just every day. It's like, it wasn't like a Parker Livingstone onslaught of, or Lance Jackson, just onslaught of just, great news every day. But it was certainly, I mean, that was a common feature. And then, of course, at the quarterback, we're going into another year of a quarterback controversy. And the controversy, I would think, is whether or not we give Arch Manning the Heisman just before the season even starts, or whether we're going to make him play it out. Right? Yeah. So there it is. There it is. The offensive depth chart. I think not as many questions as I would have expected, but certainly we have here. I don't know receivers built like Terry in the NFL. Well,
I will say I just pulled up my little comp machine, and these are some names that pop up at 6'3", 214 pounds. That's what Michael Terry's listed at right now.
What is like Dontario Drummond one of them?
No, come on. Eric Decker, Jawan Jennings, Chris Conley, Keon Coleman, Cedric Tillman, Terrell Owens.
Those are some good comps.
Roy Williams, 6'2", 212. Brashard Perriman.
You forget.
There's some dudes there.
You forget about your guy, Roy. All right. Okay. Well, that's it, right? All right. Now you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. You can find us on X at Cody Carpentier, at Alex Dunlap, NFL. Thanks so much to our great sponsors, of course, Texas Beef Traders, Poncho Outdoors, Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods, and MyPerfectFranchise.net. Our good friend Andy Ludicky. He could change your life, man, with just one quick look over at MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you've ever thought about franchises, make sure and give him a phone call. So thanks to everybody for being here. Please like the show, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about the show if you think that they would dig it. If this is your first time watching the show, just know that we're here every night from 6 to 7. It's a big deal to us to make sure that we get in, get out. We respect your time. We talk football. And we continue to have fun, man. We want to keep growing, and we wouldn't be without you guys. So thank you so much for watching, whether you're watching live or you're the 99% that are going to be watching the show on replay. So thank you very much. See you on Friday for final takes. God bless you. For Cody, I'm Alex. We're done.